in April. We're really excited to have you guys here, especially for this topic, because we feel like this topic is something that's really important for agencies and not enough people are talking about, and that is self-care. And you may be asking, how can agencies practice self-care? And they absolutely can, and we're gonna answer those questions for you with our special guest today, Robby Berthume. We're really excited to have him here, and before we introduce him, I just want to go through some housekeeping stuff for you guys just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So first, we just want to let you guys know our Instagram and Twitter handle is @HeyOrca. We have a few more agency support series coming up this month, one on remote sales and another one on legal matters. So make sure you follow us because that's where we put up all our info for our upcoming webinars. Also, this is really important. Set your chat to all panelists and attendees. We want our webinars to be this really open, interactive experience. We want you guys to talk to each other. We want it to be like kind of a community session. So when you set your chat to all panelists and attendees seen here, that means just everyone can weigh in on what you're talking about. So we definitely want to do that. And yeah, make sure you can hear us. Let us know if you can hear us and where you're calling from or joining in from. We always love to see that. So let us know in the chat where you're calling in from. And
yeah, I think the Zoom update actually updated to everyone now.
Oh, it did?
When you do a drop down, yeah, you actually see everyone in meeting.
Oh,
so if you
awesome.
guys want to switch that would be great.
Cool. I don't think I have that update yet. So awesome. But yeah, let us know where you're calling from. Oh, Peggy's here.
Peggy.
Hi, Peggy. Calling from Grimsby, Ontario. Fellow Canadians, love to have it. But yeah, let us know in the chat where you're calling from. We love to see where everyone's coming from. And we will also be distributing the slide deck and the recording and some materials tomorrow. We'll be sending all of that out, so make sure to keep an eye on your email because we'll be sending that out. So for anyone who missed the webinar or if you'd like to watch it again, yeah, please let us know. Someone else from Ontario, Baltimore, Syracuse, New York. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining. We're really happy to have you here. All right, so I'm going to pass it on to Joe, who is going to introduce our special guest for today.
All right. Thanks so much, guys, for taking out 30 minutes of your time to just reconnect. I know this can be a stressful time of year, definitely a very weird time of year. And so we want to talk a little bit about mental health, and we've invited Robby here to share some experience from the agency side, what we can do to sort of adjust to this new normal. And we talk a little bit about this, and we're going to be talking a little bit about this. But Robby, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're calling from, and a little bit about your background as well?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. Yeah, for sure. No, I'm calling from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and we're under lockdown and all that stuff. But former agency owner for 10 years out of LA from 2000 to 2010, had some leadership positions, kind of trying to find my next seat at the table, and then started Bull and Beard, an agency matchmaking service in 2013, and I've been doing that for 7 years. Last year launched Agency Match, a directory of vetted and vouched for agencies, so very involved in the agency space and do a lot of coaching, consulting, especially with our agency match members. And the other side of it as well is from a mental health perspective, I have bipolar 1 and generalized anxiety disorder and ADHD and obsessive compulsive personality disorder. So I've got, I got a little craziness in me. And I think a lot of that has led to success, but also, times of depression and having to, really deal with that. So I'm anxious to, kind of share my perspective on mental health and, how to really cope and survive and thrive during this period.
And Robby, you also run a weekly, I don't know if you call it a podcast, but a YouTube series on YouTube. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, we have a show called Charging the Agency Frontier, and really it's geared towards agencies where we interview fellow agency owners, agency coaches, consultants, guys like Carl Sakis, Jason Swank, Lee Goff, things like that. And basically, unpack a particular topic, 20, 30-minute episodes, but get a lot of value hopefully out of it. And we post right now about once a week. And you can find that at agencymatch.co. If you go to the blog section, you can see all the video interviews in one place.
Yeah, I just pasted the link there. I actually have personally enjoyed a few of those. And I think the recent series that you did with Carl as well talks a little bit about, actually, you guys talked about the COVID-19 situation, a couple weeks back. So I think that's a really insightful video to actually go through.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Robby. One of the things that we want to talk about, guys, is talking a little bit about mental health during this time. And before we start, I'd love to sort of like get advice or get a feel from you guys what you think is your top concern right now in terms of mental health, or some of the strategies or tips that you guys have deployed in your agency to help everybody stay calm during this time. But Robby, just to start off, we talk about this being the new normal, and this being not business as usual. I think one of the flaws is that people try to pretend that everything is normal. Try to normalize and try to get back to normal work, as soon as possible. What are your thoughts around sort of like COVID-19 being sort of definitely unprecedented? How should an agency owner actually accept this situation? How is it going to help your team? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head in the sense that, I mean, it starts with awareness and kind of, you go through the stages of grief, when it comes to COVID and the pandemic and how it's affecting your business and your family and having to homeschool and, whatever it might be. It's a lot at once. And so I think, you've got to be aware, but you've got to ultimately accept the reality for what it is, and that you don't have control over what's going to happen. I mean, these are macroeconomic factors that aren't necessarily your fault, but what you can control is really what you should be focused on. And so that should be, everything from personal development to professional development to, looking at your agency and determining, are we doing the best that we can in terms of our positioning, our offering, our pricing strategy, whatever it might be, looking inwards and really kind of staying busy, not staying busy to, go back to the old way and pretend, this isn't happening, but stay busy so that you're focused on, positive, productive activities rather than reading the news, which is, definitely a way to lose sleep. I've lost a lot of sleep just reading too much of the news. So instead of the news, read Adweek, read Ad Age, watch these webinars and, engage with the community. And I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah, one of the things that we've seen as well, and especially something that we're trying to practice here at HeyOrca is, try to, we've accepted that these are very weird times, and we actually adjust everything, in terms of our business process. Obviously, we have to work from home, but also on the sales side, we adjusted our forecast, except that there is going to be a downturn, and it's a lot easier, I guess, to accept, like you said, stages of grief, accept, and then try to understand what is beyond our control and what is still within our control. And so for us, what is within our control would be how we actually manage our clients, how we actually manage our team members, the morale. One of the things that we do at HeyOrca to keep the morale up is we actually start every day with a trivia. So every week we pick a theme, and in the morning we actually have a trivia question. It's only 10 minutes. Katie can speak a little bit more about that. She actually started the idea about having a trivia, but 15 minutes, and then in the afternoon, another 10 minutes. And then, winding down, we also make sure we have a ritual where we have a trivia and then, log off. But that has been very helpful for us, trying to accept that this is not normal, and, trying to, keep people still motivated during this time.
Yeah, I think it's something Robby touched on in his slides a bit later, but creating new rituals, I think, is really important here, because this is not, like I said, business as usual, life as usual. You need to adjust a lot of things in your life, but that what we do know is a schedule, right? So creating a new schedule for yourself. I've been doing it every morning, where I just write down my entire day. It helps me keep a semblance of control in my life, which feels like I have no control of right now. And I think that's when people start to feel really overwhelmed. So I think, yeah, my biggest advice for working from home is start creating your own rituals. And I know Robby has a bit to say about that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, having generalized anxiety disorder and just lots of anxiety issues, worrying about the future, and then depression sometimes with bipolar, worrying about the past, it's an interesting kind of state of mind. But for me, getting up in the morning and taking a shower and getting dressed and going through that process, and instead of just, I'm tempted to just wear sweatpants and be comfortable and that kind of thing. And that's fine every now and then. I'm not against that. But, most of the time I want to put myself in the right frame of mind to succeed. And really schedule out my time on Google Calendar the way that I normally would, and, not kind of get lazy because of the situation that I'm in, which I don't think a lot of people are. I think when people are working from home, especially, they tend to overcompensate and try to work even more to make up for the fact that they're not in the office. So if anything, I think a lot of agency people, really need to give themselves a little bit more grace. And if their, kid is coming in while they're on a conference call, understand that that's happening everywhere. Everybody's dealing with kids knocking on the door. I am. I mean, yesterday my 3-year-old was, hey, daddy. I'm like, I'm trying to do a vetting call. So it happens, but you got to give yourself grace and got to give yourself room. And, but on the other side, I definitely think, rituals and routine is a way of definitely taking back, control. And that's why even things like, cold showers, like Tony Robbins is into taking real cold showers, and other, gurus. And I've done it as well. Not a very fun experience, but what it does is it gives you that sense of, I can do this. If I can take this cold shower, I can go do this next thing and the next thing, and really build some momentum. So for me, I mean, I try to focus on a lot of the easier stuff in the morning, get me excited, get me motivated, and then really get into, some of the more challenging things later in the day as that mojo is kind of set and I'm in a nice place.
Awesome. And question, I just posted a question to, everyone in the chat here. What are some things that have helped you to adjust to this new normal? Love to learn from each other. So if you guys want to drop some of the things that you guys have learned over the past week, they'll be great in the chat. Moving on to the next, sorry, go ahead, Robby.
No, I was going to say, I mean, the other thing I was thinking about is, it's similar to, my role as a father and not taking care of, but, really provider in my family, and my wife, my 3 kids. I mean, a lot of it starts with me and starts with my tone and starts with my communication. And so if I was freaking out about the pandemic and what's happening, then that energy is going to rub off and my whole household is going to look that way. And I think it's important, if you're an agency owner, if you work with your employees or contractors or whatever it might be. I mean, really, it starts with you, that energy, that positivity, that frame of mind. So you got to keep that in mind. If you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not in a place to be able to handle the situations that are coming about, it's going to be very hard to take care of the people around you, and they're going to get scared and they're going to get fearful and worried about their job security and stuff like that. So just like you would, take care of your family, it's the same thing if you have employees or contractors that are looking up to you.
That's actually a really good point. So taking care about your mood, I guess, like based on what you're saying. So I'm a first-time founder. This is my first time owning a business, but I've been doing this for 6 years now. But when I first started, I sort of I de-emphasized that, or I didn't know how big of an effect or ripple effect that can have, especially if you're an agency owner. If you're in a bad mood or you started day in a bad mood, it's going to have the ripple effect throughout the whole team. The team's going to feel that. And so it's super important to take care of ourselves. I think a lot of times as owners, we have this, I don't know, at least for me, and speaking for myself, I feel like I can take on anything, and not being aware that I have to take care of myself. And I think as life teach me, I have to take care of myself first, because if I start off the day, like you said, positive, the team's going to feel that as well. But, the inverse is true. If I start the day negative, the team's going to feel that as well.
Yeah, I used to work, I used to not exercise very much at all. And I felt like I was just too busy. I didn't have enough time. And the business stuff was too important. The family stuff was too important. And I would make all these excuses. And then finally was talking to a fellow founder, and he's like, do you not understand that exercise is one of the best business investments that you can make? I mean, that's going to, move the dial for your business is taking those walks, or not going to the gym now, going to the home gym, or push-ups or planks or whatever. But, I think that really struck me and was like, yes, I've got to be working on myself and, be in that positive spirit, because I see, I mean, the best example for me is my family. I mean, if I come home I'm not coming home now, but if I wake up and I'm stressed out about work and I snap at my kids, and everybody has a bad day. I mean, that's just the way it is. And they're all looking to me for leadership. And if I'm in a positive state of mind, I mean, just like my mom used to tell me, I have a sister 5 years younger. And when we were growing up, I'd say, my sister Brittany, she's being a brat and all this stuff. And, my mom would just say, look, it starts with you. Treat her well, treat her with kindness, all these things. And then she'll reciprocate. She's younger. She looks up to you. And sure enough, that's what would happen. And I think same thing, from an agency perspective.
I think we have a couple comments here in terms of like how people have adjusted to the new normal. Katie, if you want to go
For
through some
sure,
of them.
yeah. So Peggy says, allowing each member of the team to set their own schedule. I'm doing forward-facing stuff from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. and my creative teams work afternoon, evenings because they have young kids. Whatever works right now. And I think that's huge. We have two young parents on our team right now with very young kids. And like Robby said, they're in their laps while we're, having our meetings in the morning. And honestly, like it brings a lot of joy to us, I think. Yeah. It's not distracting. It's fun, and I think for them it makes them feel like they can really integrate their work at home, which is so important. So that's a great one. Jennifer says our team has 2 daily stand-up meetings to make sure everyone's on the same page to address any issues or concerns, and I think that's huge. We've talked about this with remote work before. Communication is so much more important than it ever has been. So making sure everyone's on the same page from the get-go is huge.
I think it's especially, not to interrupt, but especially in the beginning of this, over communication is great. You really want to over communicate and then find the right, the balance. Exactly. If you're not used to remote working, that type of thing. And I think definitely stand-up meetings or office hours, are great ideas so that you have time for availability and to continue to nurture your culture and, stay together and stay bonded as a team, but also time to work and be flexible around, homeschooling and whatever else needs to happen.
And sometimes the stand-up doesn't have to be face-to-face. So what we do at Heyorka, we actually have a Slack stand-up. So it's a stand-up channel and people would put,
I like that.
Put what they do. And I think like personally, I don't know what you feel about it, Katie, but it helps me at least get the important things, on the list. And so it sets the tone throughout the day. That helps. And in the trivia, obviously you want to have, if you can have a face-to-face time, through Zoom, I think that helps, have that, maintain the connection when, you're not at office right now.
Yeah, speaking of which, Lauren, sorry, Robert, I just want to read Lauren's here. She just said, we have a full team check-in Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with 80 people. That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Can be a lot to take in, but it's nice to see everyone's face and have a laugh or two. That's awesome. And virtual happy hours on Fridays have become a thing as well, which is a nice way to celebrate the end of the week together. I love that.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome.
And Zen actually said, giving clients permission to do things for themselves and do them badly because their clients and customers won't mind right now. I guess, my takeaway, Zen, if you want to sort of like add more context there, is sort of like being okay, in terms of like letting more liberty for your clients to take on things. I don't know if that's what you're thinking, but I think like for me, it's to, what I've seen on Heyorka is to allow people, more liberty and also understand that this is a stressful situation. So if it doesn't hit, if the work is not up to par, be more understanding instead of like, micromanaging at this time.
Yeah.
I think all around, you've got to cut people more slack. And even when it comes to reschedule calls and stuff like that, there's got to be more grace during the situation, at least until things normalize.
Yeah.
So I want to go through really quick in terms of what's the new normal. So, Katie and I and Robby, we talked a little bit about the new normal. Obviously, the new normal is that it's affecting every aspect of our lives. And one of the things that we want to, highlight is that we need to accept that the way we work is different. We're working from home. And so some of the suggestions here are great. Try to establish new rituals that you can sort of incorporate to this new way of work instead of trying to take the old ways of work and try to sort of fit it into this new way. I think that's really important because, do what works. And I think the way that Peggy's doing it, where she's working from 8 to 2 instead of, having that 9 to 5 schedule, I think that's great. So be creative about it. It's also a chance to sort of try new things. The way you communicate as well, Katie and I, when we sort of like create our social content, we make sure that both of us actually have eyes on any of the newsletter we put out, because we realize that we're more distracted as well. We're not immune to the distractions. And it's always really good to actually have a second set of eyes around our quality of content that's putting out, so that we actually don't, say something insensitive unintentionally. And I think that's helped us a lot. And then lastly is to accept that, clients are going to, some of them might pause the account, some of them might downgrade and things like that. And that's happening to Heyorka as well. And I think as a company, what we've decided to do is to accept that this is not unique. This is affecting everyone else. And as a company, what can we do to help our clients, go through this phase, this challenging phase of time versus fighting this wave that's coming through. So instead of like fighting it, enacting policies or guidelines for our employees where they can sort of like have, conversations with the clients and have sort of like maybe leeway in terms of negotiation of how we can help them through this time. So that's how we've been doing this here at Heorka. Robby, I'm not sure if you have more things to add here.
Yeah, I mean, I think, right now we have to have a lot of empathy and a lot of care and a lot of concern for other people. And that includes our clients who are going through just as rough a time as we are, if not more rough. I mean, who knows? And so when it comes to, hey, I want to get out of my contract, or I want to lower my pricing or fee structure, or, even with my business, lower demand on the sales side, or more, pricing rejections, that kind of stuff. I mean, the way that I handle that is to, give them grace and not become defensive, and know that there's a lot of people going through this, and really how I will be remembered and how Bull and Beard and Agency Match, my companies will be remembered is how we responded during this time. It's kind of like, you don't know somebody, I feel like, until money's on the line. When there's like $5,000 or $10,000 on the line, then you start to get to know somebody's true colors, and it starts to come out. And I think it's the same thing with this situation, where if you do act with grace, and it doesn't mean saying, walking away and saying, okay, yeah, have your money back, that's it. I mean, you can negotiate and add value and figure out, let's create an alternative payment plan or format to accommodate this. But I think if you, actively show that you're trying to do the best you can to come up with a solution, and you're willing to, refund, or even if you have to, I mean, that's going to, I think in the long run, really be a good thing for you and your business. And it might be tough to struggle through now over the next, couple months or more. But I think if you can survive that struggle, you'll come out on the other side with even more respect and relationship with clients and even prospects that you're talking to.
And Robby, you do have a couple tips that we outlined here in the next slide. Do you want to go through real quick on that on this slide? It'll be great, and we can go into the Q&A.
Yeah, I mean, basically, for me, I mean, first of all, right off the bat, I would recommend a book. Personally, not to be like religious or anything. I mean, I'm a Christian, but this book is a little bit new agey, so I'm not sure what, the audience is into, but there's a book called Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. That is an excellent book, and is all about presence and awareness and your pain body, and, controlling the thoughts in your head. And I read the book 1 to 2 times a year just to kind of recalibrate, and can't say enough about the read. So buy that book on Amazon, and I think it could really help deal with some of those negative thought patterns and understand really what's going on inside of your brain, because your brain isn't you, it's your brain. It's firing, trying to, create problems oftentimes. We talked about routines and rituals, definitely maintain a consistent, start time, bedtime, all that kind of stuff. If you have kids, if you have a family, set up some structure, set up time for your homeschool. Don't just kind of loosey-goosey, your way through the process, because it's going to get chaotic very fast, and chaos is a little bit stressful. Definitely, continue exercising. Don't, use COVID as an excuse to, do the average 8 hours streaming that US adults are watching per day right now. So try to ease up on the Netflix and Disney Plus and stuff like that, and get some exercise. And maybe that exercise is, helping your spouse out with chores and getting stuff done. Or, I homeschool one of my children. My wife's a stay-at-home mom, but just to help her out, and so that she doesn't go crazy as well. So, but keep exercising, and then stay busy and productive. So, I'm working on Bull and Beard and Agency Match, and how we need to pivot, and pricing strategy and outbound, and what needs to happen. And should we get this CMO newsletter, paid advertisement, because paid media is down right now, and all these things. But I also started a business over the last couple of weeks, distributing face masks and hand sanitizers and PPE to hospitals and essential businesses. And I've actually made a lot of money in like 2 weeks, and have a website and flyers and the suppliers and everything set up. And it's been a blast. It's been a distraction. It's been fun. And so while things have been a little slower with my other businesses, this has been an opportunity to do something different that I never would have, thought I would have done. Hand sanitizer, okay, but it'll be a need over the next year. So I'm there. If you need hand sanitizer, let me know. And then, accept reality for what it is. We talked about that. I think when it comes to those feelings and anger and frustration and grief and depression, I mean, you don't want to, obviously be stuck in your bed and I don't want to wake up and deal with the world. I mean, you really have to get to the point that, you choose your own happiness. And somebody coming from somebody like me who's bipolar, sometimes I don't want to be happy. I mean, everything in my body is like, be depressed. But at the end, I still have control to see the positive side and to do the things that I know to do to get me into a better mood. So maybe that's listening to music or, watching or doing some TikTok now that my wife has got me hooked on it, stuff like that, just to, get me amped up. And then family, friends, colleagues, it's easy to get isolated. You're still probably going to be talking to the people you work with on a regular basis, but don't forget your family, especially your grandparents. They're freaking out during this time because they're older and vulnerable and having a rough time at it. And friends, got to lean into your friends and make sure you're being honest with them about how you really feel and how you're coping, and maybe the financial pressures you're dealing with and what you're doing to take that, and find friends that are fellow agency owners, fellow entrepreneurs, fellow founders that can really relate to you and aren't gonna be like, oh, okay, whatever, you have an agency, you're fine, whatever. And then cut yourself some slack. Just at the end of the day, you can do all kinds of things to, optimize your personal development and your professional development. And, you can, go with kind of a military approach if you want to. But I think the point is there was a military, I forget his name, but he did a pretty viral talk on, making the bed in the morning and starting off your day by making your bed.
Waking up at 5 a.m. Is that guy?
Waking up. Probably. And I wake up, that's my wake up time. I love the 5 a.m. wake up time. But yes, the other day it was 2 a.m. But because it's so quiet, I get everything done and, I feel on top of my day before the day really starts. I think Peggy agrees, 5 a.m. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Peggy does wake up at really crazy hours because we're actually an hour and a half ahead of Eastern time. But I'll be up at 7 a.m. and she'll be replying emails and, doing that. So Peggy, you're my inspiration.
I was talking to one of my team members, 2:30 the night before last, 2:30 in the morning. I got up at 2. I go to bed at like 8:30 and at 2 o'clock I was feeling a little hippomanic and like, I'm going to wake up and work. And so I'm just working, but it's so nice because the house was just super quiet. And by the time the kids woke up, I got all my work done. And
that's true.
And that's what I like to do as well. As I also like, from a structured perspective, me personally, I like to do all my follow-ups and my emails and my administrative work and anything like that, really in the mornings, and then spend my afternoons on sales calls and matchmaking calls, because basically I tend to get sleepy in the afternoon and the calls tend to wake me up and engage me. And it tends to get hard to work on the computer past noon if I've been up since 4 or 5 a.m. doing it. And then Slack, cut yourself some slack. Slack also reminded me of Slack, the application. And I wanted to say as well, probably many of you do this already, but, set up a fun channel where you can just share memes and funny stuff together. And also in your daily communication, keep in mind that there's no body language or tone or those sorts of things, but that's why we have Giphy and that's why we have emoticons and funny stuff. So just try to, I've noticed communication, around projects gets so much better when those that are doing it have a sense of humor and really try to, take a couple minutes extra to find the best Giphy there is to, describe that situation, and everybody's laughing and it feels more like, hey, we're a team. We have this culture even though we're apart. So I think sense of humor has got to be a part of it.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that, Robby. I know we're getting close to 4. This is just such an interesting topic that I think we could just go on and on and on about it forever. But we are going to skip to our Q&A now. Joe has some questions that were sent in from our Life and Social group, which we'll also drop the link in if you guys are not a part of. But if you have any questions for Robby here now, let us know either in the chat or the Q&A. Robby's here to answer your questions, but I'll hand it off to Joe now to talk about our questions that we've got.
Yeah, for sure. Robby, you okay if we go over 5 minutes?
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Awesome. So I just dropped a link to our resource page. We're going to be uploading this recording and the slide deck to the resource page as well. We actually have a list that Robby compiled that we'll be distributing in terms of mental health. So we just created this resource page, and we'll be putting that the recording there as well. So Robby, we talk about things that we can control. And, you know, one of the things that we can control is how we actually deal with late payments, although some part of it, obviously, we can't control when clients, you know, don't pay. But what are some of the advice you get that you would give to agency owners where clients are late on payments?
First of all, I think adopt a couple pit bulls and train them up very well, and then sick them. No, I definitely think, I mean, it's back to, you've got to be graceful. You got to kill them with kindness. I think you want to respond in a way where it's unexpected. It's like, wow, I can't believe they took it that way. And then think about, you know, what are the options? What are the alternatives, you know, beyond a debt collector or making threats? Because right now that's just, it doesn't look good if you're going to stick a debt collector on somebody or, you know, threaten them or that sort of thing. So I think, you know, offering an extension, offering payment plans, not delivering without payments, or, you know, pulling back on some items, that's totally reasonable. You know, find practical ways to deal with the situation. But I think, you know, ultimately the best bet is probably, for me, you know, some sort of payment arrangement that just spreads it out and gives them a little more predictability, a little bit less cost right now. And if you can afford it, if you've got money in the bank and you believe that things are going to normalize sooner than later, then maybe that's pay 20% now and then pay 40% in 2 months and then pay the balance in 3 months, you know, that kind of thing. And that way they feel like, okay, well, by then I'll have predictability. Do you risk not getting that payment in 3 months? Yes. But if you don't get that payment in 3 months, you'll be in a much better position to pursue debt collection or charging interest or whatever you need to do. And then whatever you do, if you set up an alternative arrangement, make sure that it's known that, hey, we're setting up an alternative arrangement. You know, make sure that they know that you're doing this for them out of grace. Like, this is not the standard, you know, rule. And we're not, you know, a bank or whatever where it just happens. I mean, this is hurting our bottom line and paying for our people and that sort of thing. Don't make them feel guilty. I don't mean that, but just make them understand that, you know, you're willing to put some skin in the game to make sure that, you know, they get through this period alive.
Yeah, and I don't know if you you agree with this viewpoint, but I was talking to another agency owner over the last week, and you know, he said that at the end of the day, it's not really about you know, the payment plans and things like that. I think the client, you know, at the end of the day, the clients want to know that you're working with them through this tough time. It's not about what is the right plan, you know, whether we do 50% or whatnot. It's the willingness of the agency to actually partner and show up as a true partner during, you know, a tough time like this.
Yeah. And I think same thing with, you know, the marketing budget of a new business prospect, for example. If you can treat that in a collaborative fashion in terms of, hey, let's look at your marketing budget together and let's figure out how to get the most bang for your buck, or maybe save some dollars, you know, that sort of thing. That's going to be the best approach versus mandating it or recommending it, or, you know, this is a strategic way to go. I mean, that's not what clients want to hear. I definitely agree.
So Robby, talking about sales, are you currently, still explore, like, I guess, like going after new sales? Like, how should people actually approach sales at such a, tricky time?
Yeah, I'm going after agencies and brands from the sales side and doing outbound sales. We have a new business team, and, you know, it's interesting. We had to get our messaging right on the drip campaigns and how we're talking about, you know, what we're talking about, and making sure that, you know, it obviously doesn't appear tone deaf, and we're being really empathetic to what's happening and providing a solution that can help, you know, put them in a better place. So I think for some businesses, it's going to be more challenging than others, depending on what you're selling. But I think there is a place for selling as long as you're adding value and doing it in an empathetic way and an aware way, and focusing, you know, not so much on like, here's what I have to offer, but here's what I can do for you during this time. Here's how I can make your life, you know, easier, better, whatever it is. So, you know, adding value, offering free engagements. We also do gifting. That's, you know, something that I love as a new business and, you know, account strategy, is sending gifts to clients, personalized gifts that are meaningful. And also, you know, we're doing direct mail, but another, you know, format that I'm liking is direct to home mail. So getting the addresses of clients and prospects and sending them COVID-19 care packages that, really stand apart with, maybe a roll of toilet paper and, that type of stuff to show them you're thinking about them. And I think when they get, when you get a care package and it's not your birthday and it's not Christmas, actually it's a pandemic. I mean, that care package is going to mean a lot. It's really going to go a long way.
And one last question, and I think we'll wrap up the Q&A for today. But, accepting the new normal, should we also, look at our service that we're offering and sort of like adapt this to the new normal? I guess, so what's your viewpoint around changing, your services to sort of, adapt to this new world?
I think you need to audit and assess your service offering. I think there's a knee-jerk reaction probably to change your services and change everything to accommodate the situation. So I don't think you want to do that. I think you want to be very careful about how you change your offering, because maybe, hopefully it's been working for you to date, and, maybe you make some adjustments to it, that sort of thing. But you don't throw everything out the window. I think nowadays, what brands are looking for, what I see on the matchmaking side, I have some notes, I'm looking down on them, but, really they're looking for immediate results. They're really thinking about the short term. They're thinking about measurability. They're thinking about low risk, high predictability. And I think as far as your services, you want to go where the market is going. So, things like PR, content, animation, digital, those are hotter capabilities than other capabilities right now because of what's happening. And then I think there's less emphasis on, long-term or expensive initiatives such as research projects or branding or, stuff like that now than there is, social media marketing because this is a great time for that. So really, I think being a part of their, marketing budget based on goals in light of the pandemic is a key thing. And then, I think from a service perspective, content is really, one of the biggest areas where I see the most opportunity. People are working from home, have access, have availability, and particularly positive content, supportive content that, reaches the social good. That's a key area. And then I think finally, another way agencies can look at this is, how can they support brands, best to support the COVID crisis or to deal with the COVID crisis. So, if you were that brand, what would be the things that, you would do? And maybe that comes out with a service offering or a package or something like that, or maybe it's a one-to-one thing. But I think overall, it all starts with an audit or an assessment. I think now is the perfect time to have a free audit, free assessment, look at everything, and then come back with, more strategic recommendations. And then I think on the service side, really it's more messaging. I think when it comes to your agency site, maybe you still have the offering the same way, but you reorder it and emphasize certain things over other things because the world has changed. And maybe you don't have to change everything, but just reemphasize or change your messaging so that it's more about that, short term than the long term, which, most marketers can't get their head around next week, much less next year.
Yeah. Thanks, Robby. That's been really, really good. And thanks for being on the show. If anybody in our audience and our viewers want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to actually reach out?
Yeah, I'm all over the interweb. So Robby, ROBBY at bullandbeard.com, or Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever. Just Google me. I'm there.
Yeah. And Robby, you also have a Facebook group for agency owners. Just before we leave, just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, we do have a agency stable. If you go to agencystable.co, that'll redirect you to the Facebook group and essentially fill out a couple questions. It's free, really value add to our relationships, but we have 685 plus agency owners, some agency coaches, search consultants, a lot of value, a lot of COVID content right now, but definitely a great resource to check out. So thank you for bringing that up.
Oh yeah, no problem. I just dropped that in the chat as well, guys. If you want to do that, great community of agency owners. So definitely a lot of like-minded people there, which I think is really nice to have during this time. Thanks again to Robby. I'm also very passionate about this topic, so I was really glad that we were able to bring this to our community. We're really glad that you guys joined us. So stay tuned tomorrow to your emails. We'll be sending out this recording, this slide deck, and also 10 mental health reminders for COVID-19 that Robby has put together together, which are really great. And keep in touch for next week. We'll be doing a session on remote sales with Butler Inc. So make sure to keep an eye out for that, and just stay safe, guys. And thanks again for joining us.
Thanks so much, guys. Thanks, Robby. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Katie. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Bye now.
See you, Lauren. See you, Peggy. Bye.